So what I want to talk today about is how the Eucharistic sacrifice is the source and summit of our faith. But before I do that, I would like to give us a little snapshot of salvation history. So if we go way back, in the very beginning, even before there was man and woman, we have God. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit had a perfect relationship. So perfect they had no need for us. But out of an outpouring of love, they created man and woman, our first parents. And their relationship in the very beginning imaged the relationship of the Trinity. But unfortunately, our first parents had better ideas than God, or so they thought. And so they turned their back on God. They didn't trust in God, and they committed what we call original sin. And so once this relationship was broken, the relationship between Adam and Eve was broken, where they didn't trust each other. They gossip, they backstab, divorce, all this stuff we sort of find ourselves in today. And so the whole drama of salvation history is also a drama of suffering, of pain, of divorce, of fighting, of wars. And so God, seeing all that, was continually trying to draw man and woman back into relationship with Him. And so if we took a snapshot of that, we see us on one side and God on the other side. And so here's us and here's God. And you can see that there's this chasm between us and God. There's this canyon. And that's what sin does. It separates. It separates us from God and us from others. And so God did not want that. And so at the fullness of time, He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to be the bridge to bring us back to God. There was no way that we would have been able to cross this bridge on our own. We needed God. No amount of good works, no amount of doing more good than bad could help us bridge this gap. And so here's Jesus. By His passion, death, and resurrection, He was able to reconcile us back to God. And so you might be wondering, okay, what does that have to do with Mass? And it has everything to do with Mass. And let me explain why. So this sacrifice is the same sacrifice that we celebrate at Mass. The sacrifice of the Mass and the sacrifice on Calvary are one and the same sacrifice. The offering is different, but the sacrifice is the same. And so this epic event that happened 2,000 years ago is the same epic event that we participate in every Sunday. And so hopefully you can sort of get an idea of why we call the Mass the source and summit of our faith. And so source. Think of, what is the source of the sun rays? It's the sun. What is the source of electricity in your car? It's the battery. And so you think of the Catholic Church. It's the largest charitable organization in the world. We help more people than anyone else. Where do we get our energy from to do this? We get it from our source, from the Eucharist. And so you think of another example, St. Peter. He boldly, courageously proclaimed the gospel. His neck was on the line all the time because people wanted him dead. What gave him this courage? It was the source, the Eucharist. And so you think of your life. What is going to be the source to help you get through those hard times? What is going to be the source to help you become the saint you were called to be, to reconcile those relationships that are broken? It can be the Eucharist. So we talked about the Eucharistic sacrifice being the source of our faith, but let's talk about it being the summit of our faith. And so when you think of summit, think of the high point of a mountain, or the peak, the apex. And that's what the Mass is for us. And so why? You can think of all the charitable works that we do, all the sacraments that we celebrate are all oriented towards our participation in the Eucharist. I work at West Catholic High School. I help out on the football team. And so all our practices, our games are oriented towards playing in the big game Thursday after Thanksgiving to win the state championship. And so that's what everything we do is directed towards. And so think of your life. What is the summit of your life? Is it to become popular, great grades, being awesome on a basketball player? All of that is awesome. That's great. But hopefully through this series, we can start to see and come to understand why it's so important to have our whole life directed towards the Eucharistic sacrifice. Allow this epic event of Calvary and the epic event at Mass to become our source, but also the summit of our lives. Thank you.